Call to order the City of Boynton Beach City Commissioners meeting Monday, June 12, 2017. Would everyone please rise for an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner McRae. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to grow. And we are here doing your will. Please guide us in our decisions and make our judgments just, our reasoning clear and concise. And in your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Stephen B. Grant.
Here.
Vice Mayor Justin Katz.
Here.
Commissioner Mac McRae.
Here.
Commissioner Christina Romulus.
She's on her way.
Commissioner Joe Casello. There is a quorum.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none. Agenda approved. Number 2, staff presentation on update of Town Square.
Good evening. Colin Groff, Assistant City Manager, and I'm real happy to be here to present this information. We've been working on this for a long time, so actually I'm pretty excited, so hopefully I'll get through this. What we're going to do is we're going to cover what we're here for tonight is to review and possibly approve moving forward on Phase 1 to redevelop Town Square. It's a very large project and it has lots of different components. So we're going to go through it, and if you have questions as I'm going through it, please ask. There are copies of the presentation in the back if you would like them, because sometimes our screen's a little bit hard to read in here. So pick up your presentation. We've been working on this project since I've been here. I came here about a little over 3 years ago, and my second day on the job, there was a strategic planning meeting where this project was the subject of the meeting, where we spent a lot of time talking about how exciting it would be to redevelop downtown, to restore the high school, to provide some private development, to really add the stimulus to the city that we need. And now we're here 3 years later, and we're presenting, moving in, and actually making some progress on the project. So I'm kind of excited. So that's why I've told you that. So where are we right now? We've gone through the RFQ process. We've selected a development team. And right now, tonight, we're looking at Phase 1 contract approval. Once that's approved, we will move into Phase 1, which we will talk about later in the presentation. But we'll move into public meetings and charrettes, where we'll start getting a lot of input on the public aspects of the project. And then we're planning on bringing you back documents in November that will move us into construction of all of the facilities that need to be built. So what are we asking for tonight is we're looking at to review and approve an ILA with the CRA for $2.1 million to cover the cost, and we'll go in detail later, to cover the cost of the Phase 1 services for the high school and Town Square. Review a resolution to appropriate $4.365 million to fund Phase 1 services, of which $2.265 comes from unappropriated fund balance. And then review and approve the resolution authorizing the execution of the Phase 1 services agreements. So that's what we're here tonight to do, and you'll be doing this as the City Commission, and you'll reconvene as the CRA Board and then back as the City Commission. Project summary, talk real quick about what is the project. It's a public-private partnership designed to redevelop the 16.5 acres that we consider Town Square, and also construct a new police station and a new fire station off campus. The project includes a new city hall and all the associated parking, repurposing the old high school and restoring it to its grandeur, and using it as a civic center, building a new police station, building a new fire station, and putting in a lot of open space park and play areas with all the associated parking. Along with that will be private uses, including townhomes, apartments, hotel, and retail space that'll come along with the project on the 16.5 acres to add the stimulus for the public development. So, current conceptual plan, I want to go through this real quick, really for those who may have not seen it. The conceptual plan is just that. It's what we believe right now fits on the site and meets the needs of the city and of the private developers. So I'm going to go through what this entails. So, and this looked really good earlier, but boy. So anyways, so down in this corner, which is, we're standing right about here right now in this chambers. So this corner we're proposing is a hotel. The next to the hotel on this site would be an apartment condo complex, depending on what the market drives. This is a large 950 space parking garage, another condo apartment complex, and then moving down the road there's townhomes in here. Then there's a 55 plus leisure living facility in here. There's another parking garage with about 350 spaces here to serve City Hall. This is the City Hall Library Complex that will be developed for the new City Hall. And then we move over to the high school. So the high school will be totally redeveloped. This is the old school museum. So this area right here that I'm going to kind of circle becomes the public, that's the public area. And it's going to be fully landscaped with, of course, with all the open space and the venue space and all that. So that entails the downtown project. And then down here in the bottom is the fire station off-site. We've also right now conceptually saying we're going to, the police station. The fire station would be across the street from where it is. Right now it's right here. It would go right across the street into that lot right there. That's conceptually, if we can look at a couple other locations, we will during the phase one of this process. So, the important stuff, the numbers. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that this project works financially, even though right now we do not have the final numbers for what this will cost, because we have to do the design work and the planning work and the design work to come up with those numbers. But what we wanted to do is look at worst case. So we took numbers out of the developer's proposal of what they believe it'll cost to develop the space that the city needs for this project. And what it includes all of the costs for all of the components that I just went over: the city hall, the parking garages, the library work, site infrastructure, which is all your parks and open space and all that, a police station, fire station, redoing the high school and the big parking garage, 900-foot parking garage. So all of those together, plus all of the costs to develop those, which are your surveying, your design, your architectural cost, your permitting, and all of those costs. And when you add that all up, it comes up to be a $94,500,000 project. That's a big project. But what it's getting you is a big deal. It's big buildings and big space. So the question is can that be paid for? Can the city afford $94 million? And the answer is we're going to do it through a public-private partnership, and we're going to leverage what we already have to fund this without any tax increases. So the way it starts is we start with $94 million, and then we're going to take off some of the things we can do right now that we basically consider this as cash into the project. So what we can do is we have 7 to 8 acres of private land that's going to be under the private development that we can sell to the private developers. That was one of the theories of this project, is to sell some land to help offset the cost and get that land developed. So the estimated land sales is about $7 million. We also, right now in the current 5-year CIP, we've designated about $3.775 million to fix these current buildings, which are in really bad shape. And all those are is Band-Aids, but instead of fixing these buildings, it would be better to move that money into the new buildings. This line right here, which is estimated utility expenses, we have about $2 million in utilities for water and sewer work that's been delayed for this area, knowing Town Square was coming. That money has already been budgeted, and we're ready to do that project in coordination with the Town Square project, which will offset the costs that are in that $94 million cost estimate. The other part of that $5 million is we're looking at a centralized district energy plant or a chilled water plant to provide the energy to all of the buildings. And the reason is it's much more efficient to provide energy through chilled water. It's much more efficient. So if we can do a central plant and provide the water, everybody saves money. The private developers save money, the city saves money, and it allows us to build that infrastructure out of utility proceeds, and because it'll be a utility just like a water or sewer utility where we'll be selling chilled water for a value, and that value will come back in and pay for that infrastructure. The next line is $10 million, and that large garage that I talked about half of it is for private parking for the apartments and the condos. So they need to pay for that. And the proposal right now is the way that would be paid for is the city, working with the developer, would set up a community development district, which would pay for the full parking garage and the high school. And in return, the city would pay its portion of the parking garage in the high school to the bond funds that CDD would raise, and then the private development would also pay assessments to pay, and that would equal to about $10 million of cash into the project. So that's what that line item is. The next line item is CRA high school funding. As a CRA board, you'd set aside some funding over the years to fix this high school. So what we want to do in phase one is we want to not just start the design, we want to go ahead and do the restoration, do the removal of the bad material inside the building, recover everything that can be recovered, put a roof on the building and get it dried in so the building is preserved. Because every day that goes by that we get a rainstorm, the building is starting to rot even further and further. So what we want to do during phase one, while we're designing all these other things, we want to be fixing the building. So that's where that funding comes from. So what that means is bottom line is the city needs $67 million to build this project. Now what does that mean in annual? What that means in annual is if we took a 25-year, over 25 years at 4.5% to 5% interest rate, that annual cost is $4.5 million a year to the city. Sounds a lot better than the $94 million up front, but it's still $4.5 million. So the question is how do you get to that? So I wanted to go real quick. We already covered these, and I'll just do. We have land sales, city CIP contributions, utility expenses, and I simply wrote these out so people in the audience and other people can read this later on and figure out what these are. And again, the private funding and the CRA high school funding. So those are the funding sources. So how do we pay that 4.5? And again, you'll have to look at your presentation, the handout, to see these numbers because they're too small to look at. But bottom line is we need to fund $4.5 million a year, which is in this column. And how do you do that each year? Well, there's 4 sources of funding that we've identified. The first one is the city. The city out of the general fund has funds to fund some of this work. So that's the first column. The second column is what we call the TIF, the CRA TIF. And what that is that's the differential in taxes from what this 16.5 acres right now is generating, which is nothing, which is zero, to what it's going to generate when there's private development on it. And that right now, based on the estimated private development that we've been given, is $1.3 million a year. So that's this second column right here. That's what we call TIF funding. The third column, because this is a priority project for the CRA and the city, the CRA has project funds. And so the third column is those project funds that the CRA will contribute to the project to help pay the project. It is fairly heavy in the beginning of the project. The reason is when you build a project, you need the cash up front to start the construction, but you don't have the revenue until after some of that happens. But you have to pay that mortgage. Even though it's like building a house. When you're building the house, you're still paying on that mortgage while they're building the house, even though you're not using it. So to come up with that, we're heavily leaning on the CRA for the first 4 years, 5 years, and then it starts going down where we're not leaning as heavily on the CRA. And it comes out of the CRA project number. And I know Mike can talk about that a little bit later about what those balances are, but we've looked at it and everybody feels like it can be done very easily within the CRA budget. Will it mean tightening the belt? Yes, it'll be tightening the belt for a few years. So that's what this column is. And the other column is all the miscellaneous income that comes from the new project. That's rental rates, leases, it's monies from the district energy, the excess revenue from district energy will go in there. So there's a lot of different other incomes that'll come in, and that makes a difference. So the reason we built this model is worst case, spending $94.5 million is how do we pay for that? And the way we pay for it is with these funds. And this is just a model. It can be done many different ways, but this is the model on how we do it. And it comes up to paying the $4.5 million a year without raising taxes and without putting a strain on doing all the other priority things the city wants to do. So it's a way to leverage what we have to build the project and to get this project done. So what are the project benefits? First and biggest one is most of the city buildings downtown are 60 years old or older, and they're beyond their useful life. We have leaks in every building. The buildings have a lot of problems. And if we keep the buildings, we're going to have to spend a lot of money to bring them up to standards. And even if we spent that money, we probably only would buy 10 to 15 years in the building. So it replaces those buildings. It provides land for the private development, increasing the city and CRA tax base, one of the goals the city has had. It creates those downtown green spaces, providing multiple venues for activities. There's going to be lots of places to do activities downtown. Remember, we're going to be creating over 1,600 parking spaces. That equivalent to, you can have crowds of 4,000 to 5,000 at events downtown at any one time if everybody drove. And we're going to encourage non-driving and alternate transportation so we could have 10,000 person events downtown with these venues. Adaptive reuse of the historic high school. I know not everybody wanted it, but right now we've decided we're going to do that. And this project allows us to do that within the funding we have available. So basically the project is the catalyst for that energetic downtown and distinct cultural district that's in our strategic plan. So that's the benefit, and that's why we're recommending that we move forward with phase one. So what's next? The next step is we've got to develop the master site plan that's needed to build the project. And we also have to develop some building plans that meet the city's vision and needs. Not full building plans, but enough to set a maximum price on those buildings. So when we go in to build them, we know the maximum price we're going to pay, and it won't go up from there. And once those plans are developed, a final financial plan will be developed. So what I just showed you, that financial plan was very high level. We will take that and get into the little tiny details. The accountants will, not me, but the accountants will get into little details and offer the financial plan of exactly how that's going to work for the city for a 25 or 30, 25-year look ahead. So that's what phase one of this project is develop those things. So it's develop these master plans, develop these building plans, it's to develop these financial plans, and it's also to dry in and get the high school on its way to being a wonderful civic center for the city to use. So it also will include that public input. That's where we're going to do the public input. Once this contract is signed, we'll start setting dates for that and working on that. And at the end of phase one, you will get a package to make a decision whether or not you want to move the project into construction or not. You will get a financial package, you'll get a funding package. How is it funding? What's the financials? What do the plans look like? The site plan will be approved, and you'll be asked for a decision to move in. Question? I think I saw a question. No?
I just looked.
Oh, okay. If you have a question, stop me.
No, okay. So what you were talking about, the maximum price for these buildings, this is just a normal building. What if we want to use the maximum density? Is that something
The maximum guaranteed price will be on the public buildings, and it'll be what the city has said that we need, and we put some square footages of what we think we need, and we're going to refine that as we go through this phase one, exactly what we need. The guaranteed maximum price does not go onto the private development. That's the private development to do. This is in the TDO area. There are some density bonuses. It will play into our new workforce housing ordinance, so all of that will come into play, and that's for the private side to develop all of those plans. The key to this project is they want to do that as fast as possible also. So we want to build the public infrastructure as fast as possible to get out of their way so they can build the private, because that's what makes this project work, is the private development. So that's what we'll be deciding in about 5 months from now. You'll have all of that in front of you with a lot of detail to make those decisions. We don't have, right now it's very high level. They're high-level estimates. We're very comfortable with the numbers that the city can do this. The city and the CRA as partners can do this with our partner developer, and this works for the city without impacting current taxes.
wonderful?
So that's what's next. So phase one, what are we going to do? We're going to develop the master site plan. And we're going to get a development order for that site plan. So we'll go through P&D, it'll go through the commission for site plan approval. We're going to develop what we call 30% building plans. And again, these are a level of detail necessary for the contractor to say, I can build that building for $19 million and I will not go over that. So it's enough detail for them to guarantee that price to the city. Once we do that guarantee, the price can come down, because that's the incentives built into the contract to bring that price down. But we don't want it to go up. So it's enough of a plan on every building, and we usually call that in industry about 30% plans. You'll see walls, you'll see how buildings are used, we'll see the use of space and things like that and how those things fit together. The next thing we'll do is we'll develop that financing structure, because there may be multiple bonds. It won't be the city doing the bonding, it's the developer doing the bonding for the city. But you will see, we'll see a complex financing structure we'll bring back, and we'll go through it. And then we're going to develop the plans and start the rehab of the old high school, and that's what's exciting. And we're hoping to see that in 3 to 4 weeks. We actually start seeing work on the high school. That's been, I know people have been waiting for that for a long time. So proposed funding, total cost, and I did these slides backwards, and I probably shouldn't have. So I'm going to go to this slide first. Total cost for this for phase one that they're going to spend is, and I have to look at my sheet because I can't see that screen, is $4,365,423,000. Those $1,500,000 of that is for the old high school. That actually includes construction work on the high school. The remaining of that is the cost to develop all of these plans that we need to develop and all of the work that goes into developing the plans.
Alan, excuse me, you
yes.
gave us that price and you said $423,000.
Sorry, $4,365,423. I got my thousand in the wrong place. You're absolutely correct. And that's important, to get your thousand in the right place. It's always important. So the proposed funding is $1.5 million for the high school renovation is proposed to be funded from the current CRA budget. And Michael will show you that when the CRA board convenes, but there is funding for that can be appropriated for that in this year's budget. And that will pay for that design and that construction to start it. Doesn't pay for all of it because it's a $10 million project, but it starts it. We're also proposing the CRA do a set-aside of $600,000 for the Town Square Phase 1 expenses. And the remaining set-aside for those expenses, the $2,265,423, is a budget amendment by resolution from the unappropriated fund balance. Now, not the $1.5 million, but the rest of the funding is there as a guarantee payment if we choose not to move forward. So if we get to the end of Phase 1 and the board says, we do not want to move forward, for whatever reason, we do have to pay the developer for their work up to that date. So that's what those funds will be used for. If we move forward, which we know we're going to move forward, we are moving forward, so I'm not even going to say if, but when we move forward, those funds are not paid to the developer. Those funds move into the project and become part of the project financing. So then those funds that we're setting aside would move back into the unappropriated fund balance. So they're only there to guarantee that we will pay the bill if we choose not to move forward. But we're going to make this project so it will move forward, so we'll never get to that. That's the goal. Any questions on that? So we are going to have the public input. We're going to start that end of July through August, looking at the architectural styles, the open space layout, activity zones, master plan, site planning, and kind of talking about where things are going, landscaping, signage, the things that the public, really do need input on, so we get what the public wants. And we'll be doing those July and August to facilitate the vision of the project. And we'll do multiple ones. There'll be more than one. And we're also going to be doing it online, too, as much as possible, so people who may not be around or may be out of town, they can actually get their input in online. They'll be able to see the same thing everybody else is seeing and be able to do their input, have their input. On website. We're going to have a website for this project, and there'll be things that you can go on and make comments. We'll set that up for people to make comments. And they'll also be able to see the videos. If whatever we record, some of them we won't record. Some of them may just be presentations we put up there, and they look through the presentation and they give their comments on it. So the idea is to get as much public input as possible.
Online, does that include social media?
If we get comments through social media, absolutely. I like social media. It's a very good way to communicate with people.
What I'm saying is we should also make it available on social media, not
Absolutely.
just the city's website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And every other way we can figure out how to do. So, lastly, this is the items you're going to be considering tonight, and actually I've missed one, but as a CRA board, you're going to be looking at an agreement to reimburse the city for the high school construction and a budget amendment for your CRA budget. And the city commission, you're going to be reviewing and approving that ILA with the CRA to accept that $2.1 million and then approve the budget appropriation for $4.3 million. And then appropriating the $2.265 out of the unappropriated fund balance. And then you're going to be reviewing reviewing the resolution and offering an approval to execute the contract for Phase 1 services with E2L Solutions. So that's what you're here tonight for. And with that, see if the board has any questions.
I have some. First of all, on your current conceptual site plan, even before I said that, you said we've been going over this for 3 years. I beg the difference. I'm saying you've been going over for 3 years. This city's been in this dilemma for a long time. If you go over to the building department and look up in that corner, you see a building that, we said this is what the town square was going to look like, etc. So, 3 years for you, but it's been a long time for me. Current conceptual site plan, you're saying something about the chillers. Where are you going to put those? I'm just saying.
Yeah, the district energy, we're still working on that. It would be built into the site, either into one of the parking garages or into one of the sites. We're working on that right now. That's very, very conceptual. What we would build it in. These things are built so you can't tell that that's what they are.
Okay.
I put them in the middle of downtown where they look just like another building right next to it.
Okay. The main thing I'm concerned with, and I'm going to make my comments now, is that when we bought the property on High Ridge Road, we bought that property to put that police department out there, and I am excited that, somebody's coming forward to say that we're finally going to give the citizens of Boynton what we voted on and what we have been waiting on for years, and that is to give the police department their due diligence. I'm just saying out on High Ridge Road where they will have enough space to do what they're supposed to be doing. If nothing else gets built, as long as we go out on High Ridge Road, I'm happy. My comments.
Board?
I think we discussed this pretty in-depth this afternoon. We met one-on-one with Colin, city manager, lawyer, and all. So my questions were answered at that time. So this is mainly for the public, I would think.
Okay.
Anybody else, or would you like me to open up to public?
I think that's what's next on the agenda.
Okay. So now we will open it up to individual speakers. We'll be limited to 3-minute presentations for public audience.
Good evening. My name is Annette Gray, 3200 South Congress Avenue. Actually, I have more of a question than a comment. And where are you in the state of making this a lean building, a green building, environmental friendly, so that you can add a revenue stream of government funding, federal funding, for some of these innovation, technology, and green initiatives?
I think that basically tonight we're starting the ball rolling on the funding aspect, and the site plan will be ironed out in between now and I believe November. So those types of things will come through either direction of the commission, public input at the various events. So as far as tonight goes, that's not something that we're not covering specific items regarding the project and the site plan itself, but it's certainly something that, you know, if people present it to us during public input, it's for consideration.
No, I definitely understand that, but there is an entire funding source that could be identified as part of your income without specific numbers or specific design, just by looking at different environmental and green initiatives. There are federal grants that are out there that can be conceptual as well as part of this process.
I think it's something that that individuals on the board have always expressed that they want to move in a greener, cleaner direction and more efficient direction.
Look forward to seeing, getting those grants, and but right now we have to assume that we will not, and so we're just moving forward with what the city can do. Yes.
Mike Fitzpatrick, 175 Southwest 2nd Street. First of all, I'd just like to follow up with what the previous speaker said about the green stuff. That sounds like a great thing. I'm learning a lot more about solar electric, and that is definitely the future. My biggest concern about the project is selling the land to the developer. The city has a compact area that's city property, and I believe it should stay that. And what's the difference in the cost of the development for a 99-year lease and selling it? As is pointed out, the lifespan of a building is 50 years, so 99 years is 2 cycles of buildings. So that is so far out that there shouldn't be really any material difference in value to the developer. I mean, the developer's profit is very soon, and by 99 years, they don't have to worry about that. So I believe it should be a 99-year lease. Otherwise, you're doing the same thing as the city commission who sold Ocean Ridge away. It's the same kind of idea. So what's the difference in cost to the city between a 99-year lease and selling it outright?
I don't think that's true. So I guess staff can look into a 99-year lease, and I guess that would mean either issuing a bond and increased taxes.
I wasn't going to answer, but I'll answer both questions. Both the green energy grants and looking at leases is all part of that detailed financial package that the developer will be bringing us, and there's multiple options on how to do these things.
Got it.
And we're going to pick the one that's best for the city and bring to you. We're going to make a recommendation to you what's best for the city, and then you'll decide amongst the packages that are brought to you.
Thank you.
Colin, excuse me, you said that you wasn't going to answer that, but I'm just saying, we're here for public input, and whatever can be answered, for the public, I think that we should answer that tonight so that we all can go away with a clear head. You answered to us upstairs, but they need to be clear on what they're doing.
Absolutely.
While you're up there, can you also speak about the LEED certified and all that, those green conscious?
Yeah, that's actually spelled out in the RFQ that we put out. We want our buildings LEED certified. We want to use alternative energy. We're going to be looking at all kinds of ways to capture solar energy with solar shades, and just like we're doing at the Beachfront Park. We just did that project. That's very doable all over downtown to provide shade, to provide solar, and you're going to be producing power. The district energy utility is a very green utility way of producing power because it's much cheaper. The carbon footprint is much smaller than the normal way of cooling buildings. So every project the whole project is geared around that. And there are grants, which we did not consider in the big picture, worst case scenario, but there are grants available and other funding available for those types of projects that we will definitely pursue as part of that funding package that we're going to try to put together.
Okay, thank you. No more comments. Closing public audience. We have a motion for recess of the City Commissioners meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Move to call. All right. Nope. Call to order of the Boynton Beach CRA board meeting. May I have roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Present.
Board members.
Board members.
Board members with CRA now. You're new.
Yeah, that's right.
We get it.
Here. Thank you. All right. Michael, would you like to begin with the new business consideration of CRA funding for the services provided under Town Square Project Phase 1 Services Agreement?
Yes, good evening, Board. Mike Simon, Interim Executive Director for the CRA. The item before you is to discuss the request by the city for a funding allocation of $2.1 million to be processed through an ILA to contribute to the Town Square redevelopment project. What staff has done in this current fiscal year is identify a source of funding for your 2.1 if you so choose to approve that. You'll see in your handout and on the screen now, I believe it's the second page of the backup, we show the summary of information with regard to our current line item for the Town Square project, which has $185,450. The old high school line item is $450,000. And in April, the board identified $1.7 million of available funding, which was made up of the dog park. It was made up of unused fund balance. It was the sale of the 211 East Ocean building, and it was the remainder of the Marina Phase 1 project, which at that point the board took 212 of that $1.7 million and allocated it to our economic development grants, which left a balance available of $1.5 million in this current fiscal year, which we are asking or suggesting be used for this project in conjunction with the 185 and the 450,000. So that's the first item for you to decide is your allocation of funding for this year. And then what we have tried to produce for you, which really is going to be your exercise tomorrow night at the CRA board meeting, is to go through our budget for this coming fiscal year, 17-18, which starts on October 1st. And you'll see on the spreadsheet that I gave you, and that's on the screen, we've projected out our TIF revenue, our expenses, both general fund, marina, and debt service. We've projected out our current TIF agreements, which is the TIF funding for development of Casa Costa, Walmart, Seabourn Cove, Phase 1 and 2, the upcoming project for 500 Ocean, and we've scheduled that out to 2030, just as to be able to fit on the page in front of you now. So you'll see, as you go out in years, you have some debt that is falling off in the form of those TIF agreements, which frees up funding, and also in 2026, our current bond debt payment of a little over $2 million also drops off. So you begin to, in the upcoming 4 to 5 year period, you start to see a decrease in debt, which then really means for you an increase in revenue by virtue of the TIF being freed up from those obligations. So the task tomorrow night, and really tonight if you'd like to see, is the request now going forward as the City Commission has presented in an earlier meeting. We have a request for 2.5 in this upcoming fiscal year, and then 3.7 for the next 3 years, and then $250,000 for the next 5, and then $1.5 million throughout the balance of the 25 years. In addition, they have projected, the developers projected a TIF throw-off for the private sector development projects within the town square site area that is estimated to throw off about $1.3 million a year. And that's not allowing any increases, of course, or decreases in potential property tax value. But essentially, that is money that would go right back into paying the debt and the overall project, and specifically for what statutorily is allowed with the CRA dollars. So if you, really the exercise is for you. If you have any questions, we can look at what's left for tomorrow night, or you can simply approve the 2.1 for this fiscal year. But if you'd like to see how this affects the CRA going forward, I'm happy to answer those questions.
I have one concern. That was that when I met with you this afternoon, that was funds in there for Sarah Sims Park, and you told me you was going to clean it up, and you really cleaned it up because we don't have any funds now for Sarah Sims Park. What was that?
Yes, sir. For purposes of the discussion today in individual meetings with city staff, on the screen right now is the projected spending that we were discussing for the fiscal year that's approaching. And what I have, again, on the screen there is your $2.5 million obligation plugged in. You have $5.3 million for available projects next year, starting October 1st. So tomorrow night...
Right, excuse me, I understand what you're saying, okay, and these are trying to tell me something else, but let me just make it very, very clear. I don't care what's on that screen up there. I'm just saying, you know, don't forget that we had funds set aside in here for Sarah Sims Park. This is my state that I'm saying, you know, on this bottom half. That's what I'm concerned with.
Yes, sir. It is just a tab in a workbook, and on the screen now is the page of the workbook that you were shown today.
Thank you.
Then the $600,000 for Sarah Sims is there, but please remember that this is a budget. Tomorrow night is a budget workshop, if you will. So you certainly, as a board tonight, you can take any action you want with regard to those items, but I was using this yellow column as a placeholder for what I believe are priority projects for the CRA, and wanted you to see that if you obligate yourself to funding this year and next year, that you still have about $2.8 million to pick projects like Sarah Sims and others.
Sir, I understood that. I just wanted stated for the record that that money was in there. This is what I'm saying. You know, I understand that we're concerned with the top half. I represent District 2, and I'm concerned about those funds. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
You know, what nobody else said, tell me. I just want to state it for the record that it's in the bottom half, but we're concerned with the top half. That's all I wanted to be stated for the record.
Yes, sir.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, I don't see the placeholder for the Community Caring Center Incubator Program. We talked about that this afternoon. I don't see it up there.
We did, Board Member Casello, but I am treating this meeting this evening as a town square meeting and not a CRA individual budget line item meeting. So I took your comment and Board Member McRae's and made notes for tomorrow's presentation when the board will vote on individual projects for next year. But again, if the CRA board is sitting tonight wants to take action on an allocation for a line item, you certainly may as a board. It is not limited to the discussion of the ILA.
My question is, why is Commissioner McRae's got a placeholder up there tonight, and the one that we talked about this afternoon doesn't. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, sir. The answer to that is that the $70,000 line item is of a much less amount than a 600. So I thought we could find $70,000 easier than 600 in an exercise, but it was of no preference to individual board members. But it's a larger project than a smaller one. So,
Michael, and we're talking about 2016-17 now, and not 2017-18.
for purposes of the 2.1,
The item that is on that we're discussing, item 3A, is for 2016-17.
correct, this current
And
fiscal year.
so I'm going to ask you that, and the board sticks to this year, and that we speak about 2017-18 tomorrow.
With all due respect, Chair, I understand that, but the problem is if we're going to be looking at 17-18 and we're taking out 2.5 for 16-17, then that may throw off some things that we had in mind to do. So I believe that this is an appropriate time to have that discussion. Maybe not to a certain extent, but my question is, can you please scroll down to our neighborhood policing program? I'd like to see what we have allocated in the budget for that.
$275,000 is what is being requested roughly for this coming fiscal year.
And this is not
That is-
counting for potentially adding another officer?
The budget that we have is not, I'm understanding there's discussion of adding 2 officers, but that's not what has been proposed as of now.
So if I'm understanding correctly, basically you're saying if we were to take out the 2.5 to send out to the city, we would have 2.8 left in the CRA budget to work with.
Yes, ma'am.
So that would be neighborhood policing officers, that would be Sarah Sims, that would be community care and kitchen, sorry
Yes, ma'am.
if I'm butchering that.
No, you're absolutely right.
It would be those.
And that's an exercise that we can do tonight as well, and even into the next couple of years at the 3.7, if you wanted to have that discussion. It is a very relevant discussion for the CRA board because you are a funding source that is committing to a 25-year plan. So the fiscal year 18-19, 19-20, 2021 are significant parts of your project fund, not your overall budget, but your project fund. And I would want you to consider that this project of this magnitude, the 3.7 isn't just to pay for Town Square. That is the project in your CRA plan. It is a significant project, just like a Marina Harbor Master Building or an ocean, open space. So it is a significant project that demands, as Collins said in the previous meeting, that some upfront funding that is not available to the city, but backs off for the CRA later.
So to be clear, tonight we're approving not only the 2.5, but also the 3.7 and every subsequent year, or just the 2.5?
Tonight, you are only approving $2.1 million to be used for the Phase 1 services. That is the 30% drawings and the 4.3 overall, which is in the previous meeting's slide, which is the Phase 1 budget. We are the 2.1 of this for this fiscal year. That's all that's being asked of you this evening. But what is being asked of you, if you move forward with Phase 2 and construction and the financing of the $65 million, as discussed earlier, you will be a committed funding source.
No, I understand that. Tonight, our decision only impacts the 2.1 million,
Yes, ma'am.
and we'll have a discussion about the 3.7 and others later on.
Yes, ma'am.
So clarify with me, we said something about 2.5 earlier, so where did that number come from?
That's what is being, I'm not sure what the page number of Collins'
I heard you say
previous
something about the
presentation.
staff from the city was asking for 2.5, and then you said 2.1. Which one is it?
Okay. I'm trying to, as you said earlier, I'm trying to give you the forecast of what's happening to the CRA other than just being restricted to a one approval evening.
Right.
So tonight, the city is asking to move forward with the Phase 1 drawings. They are asking for the CRA to commit $2.1 million for the Phase 1 drawings. That takes us through about 5 or 6 months of work, gives you, the city, a 30% drawing to decide how much the overall project is and, do you want to move forward? As staff, we also are projecting out how to pay for this project if you move forward after Phase 1, and that involves multiple years of payments which is the second part of the discussion, which takes us into next fiscal year and beyond. So when I said the 2.5 million, in your presentation, the CRA board would be asked to dedicate $2.5 million toward the Town Square project in next year's budget, which is our exercise tomorrow night, is going forward. So you've taken care of this year's money that they've asked you for. We want to then take care of next year's, and we will next year and next year and next year.
Michael, the next 3 years after that, if this project does go forward, it goes up to 3.7 million.
Yes, sir. Which again, on the spreadsheet, leaves you balances of about 1.3 million to 1.5 million left over, based on a modest 3% increase in our TIF over the next 20 years. Now, we had an 8.4% increase from this year to next, which is fabulous. You're doing your job. The tax base has increased. Things look great. So perhaps next year, if we ride somewhere between the 3 and the 8%, it'll free up additional money. And at that point, then, not this coming year, but the following year, you would have then 1.2 to deal with.
That 2.1 is what we're talking about, review and approve the ILA with the CRA for 2.1 million. Okay, and under the items for consideration, CRA board is approving with the city to reimburse the city the 2.1 million. This is where we're talking about the 2.1 million, but I do want to thank Commissioner Board Member Romulus and Board Member Costello for putting their input in. I'm just saying sometimes we start doing things hasty and kind of fast and things drop, but everything that we're discussing tonight is important and relevant because this is money that we're going to still have to be accountable for. I appreciate y'all input. Thank you.
Vice Chair, do you have any other input?
No, other than I'm kind of in agreement with the chair, and I think everybody's kind of said their piece on the next year's budget, which we're going to talk about tomorrow night. That tomorrow night we'll have that grand discussion about the line items in the 17-18 fiscal year budget. So I don't have any particular input on that tonight. I'm going to reserve statements until then, and just in general, there might be sticker shock looking at the allocations from the CRA in particular, but the reality is that either we fund it with existing revenues from the city and the CRA, or we raise taxes. And personally, I'm not prepared to raise our millage rate, so I hope that in spite of the sacrifices we might have to make in terms of potential projects moving forward, that the realization that in order to generate these types of revenues from our millage, we would have to go up to almost maxing out what's legally allowed. So everybody kind of understands the alternative, which is hopefully less desirable.
All right. I'm in agreement. Do I need to hold public, any comments for the public? Sure. Regarding this 2.1, not future items on the CRA's budget for 2017-18. Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the reassignment of 2.1 million?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Item B, consideration of the interlocal agreement with the City of Boynton Beach to provide funding for services under the Town Square Project Phase 1 service agreement. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to adjourn the CRA meeting?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
All right. If anyone can flip the name tabs back. All right. We got you. All right. Adjourn the City Commissioners meeting back at 6:52 p.m. Reconvene. Item E, proposed resolution number R17-057, authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement between the City of Boynton Beach and Boynton Beach CRA for the CRA funding of the Town Square redevelopment project for an amount not to exceed $2.1 million.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Proposed resolution number R17-058, amend the adopted full year 2016-17 general fund budget from $79,401,314 to $83,766,737, an increase of $4,365,423.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Last one, Jim. Proposed resolution number R17-059, authorize the mayor to sign the Town Square Redevelopment Phase 1 service agreement with E2L Real Estate Solutions LLC of Winter Park, Florida. Spoke with the attorney and said to approve this with subject to city attorney approval. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned.